What is up, Sports Geeks? It's your host, Josh, here back with another fantasy football video, joined by Alec. As always, Alec, last week we had wide receivers. Earlier this week, we had 6 running backs that you need to be targeting in your drafts that are sleepers. Today, we have 6 quarterbacks that you need to be targeting in your drafts. It's meant for super flex, but also could be applied if you're in a one quarterback league and just want a good stash of a second quarterback or a third quarterback. It can be applied there too, but mainly for super flex. These are guys that you're going to find outside of the first round. So it's not your Jaden Daniels. We're not going to tell you come out here and draft Josh Allen. Yeah, nobody is going to turn that down. But these are guys you're going to find in rounds 3, 4, 5 later, even in super flex drafts that have some real value. So starting off, I think, so you had the first running back. I'm going to start off with the first quarterback here. This is a guy that probably goes in the second round of a super flex draft, probably the highest overall value that you're going to find of our 6 guys here today. And it's Caleb Williams at QB 12. So Caleb Williams is somebody that I have 2 different kind of angles that I'm looking at this from. One of them is Caleb Williams as a rookie last year with a really crummy offensive line and crummy play calling. I think he's going to progress as a player, as a just overall performance from Caleb Williams himself is going to be much better. That's going to come in. He was QB 16 last year. I think he's going to progress a little bit this year. That puts him right in that QB 12 range, right? So you'd sit here and say, okay, that's an accurate depiction of what he's actually going to be. But then you calculate in the fact that he's got Ben Johnson, right, as his head coach now. Ben Johnson had Jared Goff, who was a QB 6 overall last year, right? Jared Goff has no rushing upside, and he was in an offense that was a run-first offense last year. So I think that when you put those 2 things together and you give me Caleb Williams in a weapon-heavy offense that doesn't necessarily have the rushing attack that the Lions had last year, I think they're going to lean on the pass game a little bit more. Ben Johnson's creativity paired with the weapons that they have, I think Caleb Williams is almost a lock to be a top 10 quarterback if he's healthy all year.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Caleb Williams, I really think he has a chance to be a top 5 QB in fantasy this year. I know it sounds a little crazy, but he almost rushed for 500 yards last year. So he really has a chance with that rushing floor. Even if he does 80% of what Jared Goff did, I think he could be a top 5 QB with a little luck on the rushing touchdowns.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, you're with anybody, right? Same with running backs even too, right? I mean, nobody was really predicting James
Yes.
Cook to come in and run for 16 touchdowns last year, right? So he got lucky there. But Caleb Williams obviously could use a little bit of luck, but I think with no luck, if he's a really unlucky quarterback when it comes to touchdowns this year, he probably finishes as QB 11 or 12. So you're getting him at the absolute floor, in my opinion.
Yeah. I agree. Speaking of somebody with that we're getting at the floor right now. So I have Justin Fields. He's going as QB 13. Even if he doesn't start all the games, which he should with that contract that he got, his rushing floor is unbelievable. So he finished as a top 5 QB 3 years ago, and he only threw for 2,200 yards. So his floor, even with throwing for 2,200 yards, was still like a top 5 QB. So if he throws for 2,800 yards this year, rushes for 700-800 with 7-8 touchdowns, he's gonna be a top 8 QB, probably top 7, top 8 QB.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. I also think, I mean, you said like if he starts every game, you bring up the contract, but I also look at like the guys behind him. Like Tyrod Taylor is just an older, worse version of Justin Fields. There's no difference in even like the play style there. Like I can understand saying like, Justin Fields compared to Russell Wilson, or we think a more pocket passer, more heavily pocket pass offense would help us. No, Tyrod Taylor's like the same thing as Justin Fields, is just older and worse. So I completely agree with everything you're saying. I think getting him at QB 13 value when he had a top 5 QB finish 2 years ago, and last year was very good until the Steelers decided to bench him for Russ, and now they end up with Aaron Rodgers, who's just going to
worse than both. Who's worse than both?
Certainly worse than both, and just going to torment Steelers fans. But no, I love the Justin Fields shout there. I'm going to go to my second one here, and this is a guy who, coming into his second year, last year in the final 3 weeks of the season was QB 17 overall in the final 3 weeks. And this year he's being drafted as QB 23. And I bring up the final 3 weeks last year because it's Michael Penix Jr. And last year he didn't take over until the final 3 weeks of the season. He ended in week 18 with a 26-point performance. which was a great performance. And I think that when I look at Michael Penix at the end of last year, as he started to gain a little bit of momentum, and you could see it not only in fantasy scores, you could see it in just the confidence in which he's playing, right? Michael Penix is a guy who unleashes the ball and likes to just corkscrew one down the middle. When he has confidence to let those fly, he's at his best. And you could see him progress through that in those final 3 weeks. And I think that when you put him in this offense with a very good wide receiver too, who got referenced 2 weeks ago in Darnell Mooney.
I
You
know.
have Drake London, who's a very solid wide receiver one, and Kyle Pitts, who's the most hyped up tight end year in, year out, but nevertheless an athletic freak, right? I understand they might be in a rush first offense, but we just talked about Jared Goff in a rush first offense last year. He was QB6. I think Penix in a run first offense can still operate as a top 15 quarterback in
Yep.
fantasy because of his ability to just let it fly. The big playability is going to be there. I love Penix at this value. I also think that as the Falcons get more and more, comfortable letting him take the reins, that he could really, really show a ton of regression, positive regression when it comes to just growth in their offense.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. Kind of a similar guy that I'm going to go with for my second guy. So I'm going to go Trevor Lawrence here. Um, and kind of the reason for that is I think Trevor Lawrence is going to make a big step with Liam Cohen this year. And I really think that BTJ broke out last year. Travis Hunter's probably mainly going to play wide out. And so I really think the ceiling for, Trevor Lawrence is a back end QB1, and he's going as QB 20 right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence is certainly one that has. I mean, they paid him like he's a top 6 quarterback, right? He has not played like that, but the value is there, and I think that look at what Baker Mayfield did last year, right? And he was so good in fantasy purposes and in real life, right? I mean, I'm not trying to diminish the fact that Baker Mayfield was also a great quarterback in real life, but Baker Mayfield finishes QB4 last year, and now you're putting Trevor Lawrence into an offense that could very, very, very easily take off, and they have the young pieces around him to do that. I really, really like the Trevor Lawrence shout there from
Yeah.
you. I'm going to go with my third and final one here, and it's going to be. I said Penix was QB 23. I'm going QB 24, so one behind him. It's Bryce Young, and I think that Bryce Young is such an interesting one to me to be drafted this low, and I understand that there's injuries and stuff from last year that might play into this, but overall, he was QB 20 last year, and he had a 6-week stretch in which he scored a total of 5.9 points, so less than 1 point per week. And you calculate that 6-week stretch, just a third of the season, into his overall performance, and he still outperformed QB 24. He still outperformed this value. And then you also put the fact that at the end of the year, you started to see him actually have a little bit of confidence and progress forward and show that he is comfortable at the NFL level and is not this undersized, scared quarterback that can't throw the ball down the field. I also think then you add in Tedero McMillan coming in, right? First round draft pick, high overall draft pick, top 10 pick. If you're spending something like that on a wide receiver, on a weapon, you very clearly are going to want to put trust into your quarterback's hands. I think that overall, Bryce Young has some really positive value. I think Tedero McMillan has some great value. But at QB 24, and he finished QB 20 last year with a really, really, really rough year, I think that Bryce Young is only going to get better coming into this year. So this is something that I'm going to hammer in any super flex league I'm in.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with you. I really think that Bryce Young this year could break out. He has the pedigree. He doesn't have the size. But I really think he has the pedigree though with Dave Canales to kind of take that next step, potentially be like a with the right volume, like a Dak Prescott, like a Brock Purdy, somewhere in there.
Yep. Nope. Absolutely agree.
Yeah. So my last guy, I'm going Danny Dimes. So I really think he's going to start for the Colts. He's going as QB like 31. And I just think that's a great value. Him in fantasy, he's probably going to end up being, if he starts, half the year, probably somewhere between like 17 to 24 in points per game. But if you're getting him at QB 31, I think it's worth the risk.
Yeah. No, I mean, especially in a super flex when you think of teams that in your league that might just kind of hog or hoard quarterbacks. Daniel Jones is one that if you're going to hoard quarterbacks, you probably are not going to take. So
Yep.
if you get your two quarterbacks and you don't have that cemented third quarterback that you want, and it's too late in the draft to get one, Danny Dimes is a guy that is probably going to be, a lot of people are going to shy away from Danny Dimes.
Yep.
And this is the value because of his overall performance as an NFL player, right? Fortunately, we don't care about the NFL performance all that much. If he's starting games, then he's going to get you fantasy points. He's got the rushing upside. And so I do agree with you there. As crazy as it sounds, the value to get at QB 31 is actually really, really good. I would
Yep.
certainly take him over like Tyler Shuck, who's right ahead of him, just because I think Tyler Shuck could be awful this year. Certainly a learning year for him, but no, I love that out of you there. But those are our 6 guys. So those are 6 quarterbacks. Next week, we're going to have probably 6 rookies that we think you need to be targeting late in drafts. And then we'll also have maybe some 6 super sleeper running backs, maybe some tight ends. We got a bunch of stuff that we're going to be sprinkling in here in the next couple of weeks. But these are 6 quarterbacks that you need to be targeting in a super flex draft. If you're not in a super flex draft, then you still should be at least keeping an eye on these guys, because we very easily could see somebody like Jaden Daniels last year drafted in the 10th, 11th, 12th round of your redraft league that ends up as a top 8 quarterback because all the pieces aligned at the right time. So keep that in mind there. But other than that, this has been the Sports Geeks podcast. They play, we talk. Thanks for watching, guys.